Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another exciting episode of This Is Our Life. This is for my friend Deb on Facebook. Um, I'm watching a show here on YouTube. I paused it. Not watching it right now. Um, there was this guy I knew. I definitely wouldn't call him a friend, but there was a guy I knew who was in Sugarland. Now, mind you, I moved to Texas in 1972, and I lived in Texas until a few years ago. So, boy, oh boy, do I know Texas. Anyway, um, he wasn't on death row. I don't know exactly what his charges were. He was down in Corpus. Corpus is Corpus Christi, and whatever happened, and he took off on a motorbike running from the cops, and he crashed and messed up his finger, so he lost the like half his fingers on each hand. Anyway, he was in Sugar Land. Now I lived in Alief back when Alief was Alief. You know, it was a little farming town. The outskirts of the suburbs. It was a mix of suburbs and farm country. And I tell you, I don't mind East Texas so much. I mean, East Texas isn't bad at all. I'm not a big fan of Texas by any means, but there are two parts of Texas that I've lived in, and I mean, I've lived in most of Texas. Only two parts of Texas I have not lived in, and that's the Panhandle and West Texas. But I've lived in every other part of Texas. No, excuse me. I've not lived in the Valley, the Panhandle, or West Texas, but I've been to those places. But I've lived in North Texas, Central Texas, South Texas, East Texas, the Hill Country. I've lived in most of Texas. I never even want to go back there. I mean, yeah, the food's great in San Antonio, but not good enough for me to want to go back. And anyway, so this old boy, because we were talking earlier, I'm a death row inmate pen pal, and so are you. And I'm sorry, with John, you know what got John convicted? Somebody said, "Oh yeah, I know who it was." Everybody was wearing a mask. Yeah, whoever supposedly identified him, "Oh, I know who it was." Yeah, my foot. And one of those people gets sent to death row and is murdered by the state of Texas. John never asked me for anything. I would send him books. I would send John books, and he would say, "Hey, did you send me these things?" I said, "Yes." And he said, "You don't need to send me anything, man." And I'm like, I want to give you something to do, because you're sitting in a cell by yourself 24/7. But anyway, this old boy I knew, I don't even remember his name. He was in Sugarland. Now, Sugarland is, as far as I know, it's the only prison, at least in modern times, that Texas has closed. There's a reason they closed it. I think they're going to build an airport out there. But, I remember when Sugarland was rural. It's not rural anymore. I remember the sugar refinery. I mean, I remember the prison. I remember when we used to go, driving out there, and you see prisoners in white jumpsuits. At least I think they were, white one-piece jumpsuits. Either that or they were a shirt and a pants, but they were white, and they were on the back of like a flatbed trailer being pulled by a tractor. They'd be working out in the fields. Well, this old boy that I knew, and like I said, I don't even remember his name. He told me, if the guards didn't like you, or if they didn't think you were working fast enough, they'd get the horses to come up behind you and bite you. I remember seeing these old boys out there on their horses. They'd have a shotgun over their shoulder, just sitting over their shoulder. Yeah, you ain't so tough when that shotgun ain't there, are you? Uh-uh. One of my principals in elementary school, one of her sons was a prison guard for a while, and Mrs. Hunt used to go to the prison rodeo in Huntsville. I mean, I always consider the prison rodeo to be exploitive, but then again, I've heard from these old boys saying, gave them something to do, gave them something worthwhile to do. And this old boy that I knew that was in Sugar Land, he said, I had a choice. I could sit in my cell 24/7. I could go out and do something and work in the fields. And he said he'd rather be working out in the fields. Well, in all honesty, I can understand that. But then again, he was an idiot. He definitely was an idiot. But when I was in this place down in Victoria, Texas, it's not what it was when I was there. When I was there, a lot of us were there as an alternative to juvie hall or prison or jail or anything like that. And a lot of us were there either because it was an alternative to that, or I mean, one way or another, we got sent there because of the courts. And there's this old boy who was working there, and I was talking to him one day. He had been a prison guard. He said this old boy grabbed him by the neck, pulled him into his cell, and said, I'm gonna kill you." And I was like, "Well, was the guy serious?" He said, "Yeah, the guy was serious." So I don't try to minimize the kind of some of I don't try to minimize the kind of people that are in prison. At least some of them. I mean, there are people who wind up in prison that are innocent. There are people who wind up in prison that made a mistake, and they're going to do 20, 30, 40 years. There's a guy, not I didn't really know him. He was a neighbor of mine in San Antonio, and some people had vandalized the road signs on the freeway. So what was supposed to be an exit, the sign was put up there so it looked like it was an on-ramp. And I'm not saying he wasn't drunk. Maybe he was. I don't know. But he wound up going the wrong way on the freeway. I think it was Loop 410. And he hit somebody. And, that particular family was well connected. And being well connected, he got sent up. And, he did like 20 years or more in prison. He went the wrong way on the freeway. It wasn't his fault. It's because some idiots messed around with the signs. So he thought the exit ramp was an on ramp because the signs were turned around. The sad thing is, he gets out of prison after a few years and he has a heart attack and dies. It's like my wife. My wife has had a hell of a hard time in life, and now she's having to deal with this. Anyway, this video's for you, Deb.